Well, good morning, everyone. It is the last Tuesday of January in 2014. Imagine that. This month has really flown. It is 8 a.m. and it is, last time I checked, negative 5 degrees here in Indianapolis, which is not nearly as bad as they were predicting, which is a good thing, I guess. I don't know. I think once you get past the negative points, it's just freaking cold. So, sitting here, I've got my little heated blanket with me. But it's not bad. Going to discuss part 2 of my conversation with my husband. He's here across the table from me drinking his coffee. Everybody say hi to Eddie.
Good morning, all.
Just a heads up if you think it is over with the bad storms and cold weather, because we've just been pounded this winter. It is not. In about a week and a half, 2 weeks, there's a lot of chatter going on about another major winter storm coming at us. So don't let your guard down. Keep prepping. Stay stocked up. And as soon as I get more word on what's going on, I will definitely share it with everyone. But it's not over yet. And we mentioned that it was going to be a bad winter back in the fall. We were discussing the fact that which you will probably hear him in the background. We brought the Great Pyrenees, the Great Dixon, into the house last night, expecting, there he is, negative 20 degrees. We got negative 5, but just because we love him, we brought him inside last night, and he's not adjusting very well. He's like a big freight train trying to go through the house because he's an outside dog. But he managed to survive. He's still in here with us. He'll be going outside here once it gets over 0 and back to normal life. But again, don't let your guard down, expecting more snow and more cold temperatures. I posted that over on my Facebook wall this morning, and somebody from Oklahoma City said yes, in her 10-day forecast, she's expecting double-digit negative temperatures again. So keep prepping, folks. It ain't over yet. It's only February. You know, it's cold, too, when they're talking about moving the Super Bowl, the day that it's played on. The world that I live in, it's a big day in our household, and they're talking about moving it to Saturday, possibly Friday, depending on when this cold spell hits the East Coast. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. In the news, besides the weather, which is probably one of the biggest reasons out there that a lot of people prep. There's a lot of chatter about emerging markets coming out and making a lot of countries a little nervous when it comes to what's going on in the stock markets and with our cash that's in the banks. I've seen a lot of news lately about banks not allowing us to take our money out of the bank, or allowing us only to take certain amounts out of the bank. You know, a lot of people are finally realizing that these institutions are not the nicest people in the world. It's our money. We should have a right to do what we want. If they understand the banking system, they probably would realize that, you know, our money's not really all that real to begin with. So just a heads up, keep an eye on it. I know Venezuela, Brazil, we're both in some serious trouble. And you've got some countries, you know, over in Europe that are unstable, and it will cause a domino effect if anything happens. So my suggestion to you, and it's a suggestion, make sure that you have some cash stashed, just in case. Long-term in a downgrade situation, it's going to be worthless. But at the beginning, you're probably going to be able to get some things, and you will need to pay bills for a while. A lot of people think that if there's a downgrade situation that people that rent or whoever, they're not going to come looking for the cash that you owe them. I'd rather have a little bit on hand just in case they do. So definitely just keep an eye on the stock markets, on what's going on with the monetary segment of prepping, because it's very important. And yes, if a country goes down, it can have a domino effect on the rest of us. So just don't think because it's going on someplace else in the world, it's not going to affect you, because it will. I know back to food preps for a minute. California, even though with all the cold weather and snow that we've had here in the east, in the northeast, California is in a drought right now. There's been fires over there. significant fires. And one of the things that they're talking about is how it's going to impact produce this spring. Now, a lot of you here in the Northeast get your produce shipped from either the West, down in Florida, or from other countries such as Mexico. These drought conditions, with the lack of produce being produced right now, is going to impact what you buy this spring. Either you're going to get poor quality and high prices, probably both of them combined. So just make sure you're ready for that. So it is now about 7 minutes after 8. And so that's all the good, happy news for today. Just various reasons to stay prepared at all times. But I want to continue the conversation that I had with my husband last week. And what we discussed, if you'd like to go back and check it out, go to www.ucy.tv/PrepperChicks and look for last Tuesday's date. And I had my husband on because I wanted to talk to some people out there. I know, not every family out there is the perfect prepper family, including ours. It's taken us a long time to get where we're at right now. And it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. We're talking about merging a city boy. I'm going to say boy because I've called him a thug before. A city boy from Brooklyn, New York, and a country girl, a farm girl from Ohio. The journey, like I said, it's been up and it's been down. But how do you get everyone on the same page? Because not only us, but our children too. My husband comes with 2 kids. I've got 2 kids, and then we've got one together. That what about getting them on board? Because it's been a struggle, and I know a lot of families out there are going through the same thing. Our family, my husband, we've discovered his strong point is with firearms. That's his passion.
I thought it was woodworking. Okay.
No, it's definitely with firearms. Now, we've discovered other talents along the way, don't get me wrong. This past week, he did build me a new bookshelf because we are going to start doing some extra training in our house for people that we know. We both are now certified to teach the Utah gun class. So we've got a class coming up this Saturday with some good friends of ours. And this past week, we actually taught a woman who walked into her home a couple weeks ago and discovered someone there that she did not invite. So she decided to purchase a firearm for protection. And we sat down with her and went through, it's called First Steps in the NRA world. But it's basically how the gun functions, proper stance, proper breathing, and all of that lovely stuff. And then that was Sunday. From there, we went to a well-armed woman class over in Beech Grove, which was always a fun time. It's just a bunch of ladies that get together. No men are invited, and it is what it is. But it's nice to see. Geez, I think we're getting close to probably 50 in the class. But we had an hour of a Indianapolis Police Department, a female that came in. Her name was Kim, and I'm going to get in touch with her and have her on the radio show. But she talked about what her life is like as a police officer, and her husband also is a police officer. And she just discussed situational awareness. Showed us a pretty interesting video, which was I heard a lot of gasps going on in the audience. But she showed us a video of a mom, anybody, could have been anybody. She was shopping at Walmart. She had her 2-year-old in the cart, and she had her 12-year-old with her. And you see the video, the security tapes of her just walking through Walmart. And she's doing her shopping, she's in her own little world, thinking about probably what she's going to have for dinner that night, what she needs in the weeks ahead. And you see another gentleman enter Walmart, who obviously was up to no good. So as this woman and her 2 children are traveling around the Walmart, completely oblivious to what's going on around them. And a lot of us do this a lot at the grocery store. You're comfortable. It's your hometown market. There might be people there, neighbors that people you haven't seen for a while, you feel comfortable, you feel safe. And unfortunately, situational awareness for this woman was not of utmost importance in her mind. So she's traveling around, she's picking up stuff, she walks away from the 2-year-old in the cart multiple times, turns her back on the child, is an aisle away at one point, and expecting the 12-year-old to keep an eye on the child. And you know how 12-year-olds are. It's hit or miss. Well, the gentleman that had walked into the Walmart earlier does a couple laps around the store and is casing the joint, looking for an easy target. And guess who he chooses? He chooses this particular family and proceeds to pick up the 2-year-old out of the cart and then has a knife to her throat. He walks over, he hands his cell phone to the mom and says, I want you to call a friend of mine who happens to be also a police officer, I believe in Dallas, who would not answer his phone calls for some reason. So, a very, very disturbing video that we saw. The next thing you know, we're seeing negotiators walk in because a couple things. The woman that did the presentation mentioned about strapping the child down. It could have brought a different outcome to the scenario if the guy had to try to get the child out of the cart. She also brought up the fact that, don't turn your back on your kids when you're in the store. That's very important. And eventually, like I said, the negotiators came in and they got the guy to sit down on a chair because at that point, the gentleman that was holding the child had the child's head very close to his. They could not get a clean shot. This was not going to turn out well. So they needed to get him distracted. So they sat him down on a chair. At that point in time, the negotiator got close. The guy just would not even discuss anything. And finally, the negotiator that was there decided it was time. And that's when the video ended. The child, from what I understand, did survive it. But definitely, please, women, ladies, even dads, if you're taking your kids to the grocery store, situational awareness is very important. You need to stay aware of your surroundings, about the people walking around. I mean, this gentleman, you could watch him on the security tapes, walked around the store probably 4 times without putting anything in his cart. Know who's around you. Know where the exits are. Have a plan in place. Does not mean that you need to live a paranoid life. I want to make that very, very important because that's usually the first thing that's brought up when I start talking about situational. Well, aren't you paranoid all the time? It's like, no, I'm not paranoid. I walk into a restaurant, I sit down. It's to the point now where we know where the exits are, the entrances. We know who's around us. And it gives us an extra, we can relax a little bit better then. We know what's going on. And then you don't think about it and you enjoy the rest of your meal or your shopping trip, but you've got a plan. Please take time to do that. They talk about in the civilian life, there's 3 different sections of being prepared. One of those is when you're at home and your guard's completely down. It might be when you're going to sleep. The second one is when you're out in familiar territory. And the third one is when you're engaged. So please, please take the time to know who's around you, what's going on. Your life, your child's life could depend upon it. This family that I talked about was an easy target. When I go to the grocery store, there are a lot of easy targets in the grocery store. A lot of them. If you don't think it can happen to you, you're just kidding yourself. Just eyes open, know what's going on, and stay safe. So, before we get off on a rabbit trail, Eddie, welcome back to the show this morning.
Thank you. I was hoping you'd forget.
And that ain't gonna happen. But we kind of left off last week talking about where we're at right now. But I know there are a lot of families out there that are on the journey that we've been on, where you're trying to get a spouse that does not prep into prepping. I wrote a story a while ago about I prep alone because it felt for the longest time that I was the only one that that cared. I caught myself there. That I was the only one that was concerned and cared. And it sucks to be that person in the family. And quite honestly, I don't think it's not that you didn't care. I think it's just you had a different set of priorities.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, there's when you go, especially with the whole prepping thing, if you make a decision without really getting the rest of the family on board, you're going to get the attitude that, yeah, it's going to feel like we don't care because we don't want to deal with all the added nuisance and extra work of that particular prep that you decided the entire family's going to do.
Yeah, and it's not like I've not done that because I do that a lot because I see the importance of it. You know, I'm a working spouse. You're a working spouse. You know, we've merged both of our monetary funds together, but I do have some independence there. And if I see a need, I fill it. And sometimes I feel that not always without consulting you 100%.
Well, yeah.
So I go out to buy a Great Pyrenees dog and came home with 2 goats.
Right. Well, there's the mentality. We've talked about the mentality before. Being from a big city where room space in an apartment is actually at a premium. You're paying $1,500 for a 1,400 square foot room. It's a studio apartment. And so you just don't go out and buy stuff and bring it in because you have no room to stand when you do this.
And I grew up on a 300-acre farm, so we had all kinds of room.
Right. So the whole mentality is when it starts to feel cluttered for me and you know, it's like with the animals and then you go and you grab something and then you buy it. And my first thought is, okay, we're buying that. What are we replacing with that? We need to make room for that.
And in a preparedness mindset, you're not replacing something that's completely opposite of your end goal. You're not replacing anything. Like your mentality said, you're actually adding to what you have.
Right.
So,
where I'm thinking, because I used to live in a tiny apartment, you know, at least compared to where we live now, I was thinking, okay, I need to make room for this. And where you come from, it's like, hey, we could just put this anywhere. And so for me, I feel cluttered. For you, you think, oh, we have plenty of room.
Yeah, and it's hard to get out of that, even though you can see, obviously, we don't live in an apartment in New York City. It still is in your head, and it's hard when you've spent all of your years growing up to get past that. I do the same thing. Even now, I grew up out in the middle of nowhere. Our closest store was probably, 25 miles away, and the nearest town was probably close to an hour away, if you actually drove the normal speed limits, which is a whole other story. My husband makes fun of me because, I, bend those rules a little bit sometimes when it comes to driving and, being a country girl when you're allowed out on the weekends as a teenager. And you have to drive an hour to town and you're allowed out for 3 hours. You kind of cut that time down a little bit to make sure you have some time to spend in town. But, that's a whole nother story. So, even now, anytime we are expecting a storm, I get a little, I would say antsy, maybe is the word, and want to make sure that we have certain things done to make sure that we're ready to get through this storm in the most comfort that we can.
Right. And I agree with that. You brought me around to that. I always made fun of you. And I still will make fun of you. Because I do feel like we're hoarding food sometimes, but it's not a bad thing. I've learned the hard way that it's a good thing to keep the extra foods around. So I don't have to walk out in freezing snow to get some.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But it's been a rough, I'm not saying, when I say rough, I'm not saying that we constantly fight about it or anything like that. We're very both strong-minded individuals. So we've had to learn over the years to compromise on specific things. At the beginning, when it was just him not Eddie understanding what I was doing and me just living a normal life that I was used to growing up on the farm, we had some quabbles about it. But now that he's seen the importance of it. I think that helps. But what your journey in order to get to preparedness? Because was not in your mindset at all. How would you say that has changed? What's changed it, I should say?
Well, my original thought of preparedness / blah, blah.
We were all crazy people.
No, I was a survivalist. I was, even from before we met, my whole philosophy was the lone wolf survivor. I've got my little backpack with just enough to get me, out into the woods, and then I can survive off the woods, with all the military training in the background and, extensive hiking and camping as a kid and a young adult. And living in New York City, I could walk for 10 miles, 15 miles a day and not really feel it because that's all you did in New York. And the hiking and the camping was a big passion back in those days, which I still like. We do. So I always thought I'll grab myself a knapsack, I'll fill it with my provisions, and I'm done. So, that's what we would.
Would you consider people that live in the city that walk, like say New York City,
healthier?
Well, not
healthy.
But more of a survivalist. They carry things that they might need on them.
Yes. In New York City, you have more of an EDC, everyday carry mindset. Everywhere I went in New York City, I had a knapsack. And in that knapsack, I had a mini first aid kit. I had another knife along with my pocket knife. I had spare ammunition for my revolver that I carried in New York City. I had, all the extra things I needed for that day. If I were to get caught outside or caught where I couldn't get home, I would have extra stuff in that backpack, what I felt I needed for that day or that particular outing. And everybody, if you go to New York City, almost every young adult is carrying some sort of a knapsack. That's why it's a terrorist dream over there, because everybody's got a freaking dirty bomb on it.
Well, I think they stopped it now, but there for a while last summer and the summer before that, I remember, the police had been given the right to search any backpack on a subway that they felt they needed to.
They have the stop and frisk. That it's a new law, whatever they want to call it. It basically, if you're walking and the policeman thinks that you're suspicious, he can pull you over and stop and frisk you without another word. So, and if you're carrying so much as a damn pocket knife, they can take it away from you. And it doesn't matter the size of the blade. If they feel it's up to the officer's discretion. So you're in this whole Judge Dredd environment where the officer that pulls you over is he's your arresting officer, your judge, and your jury on small things like that. And I think that's getting into the whole Big Brother.
Yeah, because as a country girl, I would have a problem with that. I'm a very private person. Half of our neighbors didn't, we visited once a week or once a month or whatever. So we didn't see the outside world as much as you did. I would have a huge problem being in New York City with that. I'm good for about 3 days when we go to visit his family. And then I start getting the hives or something, and it's like there's no green hardly anywhere. And the places that we go to visit anyways. And just too much of an enclosed environment. You almost feel claustrophobic. There's no way to escape.
It is, the old, to be a cliche, it's a concrete jungle. Everything in there is concrete, glass, and steel. You look around, you got one tree every, 50 yards. You don't see very many trees, and when you get, certain places, it's horrible. It's filthy. It smells bad. The homeless people are coming at you, begging you for money.
So whether you realized it or not, you had a preparedness mindset even growing up in New York City. Now compare that to, say, when we moved to Cleveland, because we lived in Cleveland, Ohio before we ended up here in Indianapolis. Do you think the people in Cleveland had the same mindset? Yeah.
Not one bit.
Why?
Just because everybody's driving, even take that preparedness mindset in New York City. Now you have a car. Imagine that you were able to afford a vehicle in New York City with the taxes and the blah, blah. You get in there, and all of a sudden, you don't have that knapsack with everything you need because everything's in your car. But you don't pack everything you need because you think you have the car. That's your get out. you don't walk as much, so you're not as fit as the rest, or you cannot walk as much as the rest, or as far or as long. Then you don't have the first aid kit. You might have one in the trunk. Most people did not. I'm thinking about my family and the people that they didn't have jumper cables in their car. They didn't have the preparedness for the vehicle that they had for themselves when they carried a knapsack.
Well, no, because you're gambling in New York City with a car because you don't know if most of it's going to be there the next morning when you wake up.
That's another thing too.
So you don't leave stuff in it like you would in Ohio.
Right. Like, remember when the first time we drove to New York, and I was actually kind of fighting with you because you left a $5 bill and some pocket change in the cup holder of the vehicle. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. They'll smash the window for pocket change. And, we didn't, you didn't think about that because the mentality is, you could leave whatever it was in the vehicle, nobody would bother your vehicle. In New York City, they will smash, your side window or whatever to get to the pocket change, to get to the junk that's at the floorboards that we didn't think anything less of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you questioned my sanity a few times because when we did go to New York City, I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Back then, we'd go to the store, hi, how you doing? And whatnot. And that gives you the EBGBs.
Yeah, it bothers me, growing up with that whole don't talk to strangers and children being kidnapped and the dirty old men, offering candy to little girls. And that was a true fact of life for us. We lived that. We saw that.
Yeah, but you've changed a little bit there. And, one of the things that you learn in any kind of survival situation when you're dealing with strangers is, you're taught to make eye contact. It shows confidence. It might make someone, if you're going to attack someone, would you choose to attack someone that's looking you in the eye, addressing you, or would you choose someone that has their head bowed and hasn't made eye contact with you? You would choose the weaker.
Well, I would. If I was going to be a predator, I would choose the one that looked weaker.
Right. And see, I grew up with that confidence. You address people, you look at people, you talk to people. And you've seen that over the years and have changed a little bit, I think, in my opinion. When we do go out, you do talk to people more and address people and see the benefit of it. I can go through the grocery store line and know more about the cashier in 5 minutes than probably her neighbors know about her for the last 10 years. It's just a matter of getting to know people. And it's quite fascinating. People are fascinating. One of the things I like to do is study people after a downgrade situation and see how they react. We can learn from those things and adjust. And so that way, if it does happen to us, it makes our life a little easier because we kind of know what to expect then. But going back, it's been a journey to where we're at now. It's not always been easy. Like I said before, I felt like I was preparing alone because you had a fixation just on firearms. So how did we get you over to, because now you'll help me can occasionally.
Occasionally. Not all the time. Some of that stuff just doesn't smell right. Like your green beans. Oh, I won't touch that.
But you won't eat green beans. You don't like green beans, so that's understandable.
Well, the way that the biggest way to get us on board was to help and have us as part of the decision-making process. If you made the decision without me, my whole mindset back then was, you know what? You decided you could do it without me, then you can go ahead and do it without me because I don't want no part of that junk.
What about the families that the spouse just thinks you're crazy, though?
Well, that whole thing is back to what we spoke about last week. You need to find the gateway. It's kind of like marijuana being your gateway drug to the step up to the big tougher ones, right?
We don't want to.
Okay, well, we're talking about Colorado.
Okay, disclaimer alert. We're not advocating drug use at all. No, now, the whole marijuana thing, that's a whole nother show.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad taught me not to use drugs. He would claim marijuana was a gateway drug. It's a drug to get you started into the tougher ones. But the same thing with prepping. You have to find the gateway. You find the entrance, the foothold, or
so with like you, it was firearms.
With me, it was more not so much firearms because I've been a shooter all my life. it was more of the survival technique, you know, the starting fires in the backyard and
me tying you up
pit.
and you trying to escape.
That's different. We don't talk about that. Yeah, playing escape. What was it?
Escape the restraints.
Yeah.
So one thing, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up now. So because we're more on the same page now, I mean, there's still a little bit, you know, there going on.
There's still some headbutting.
Yeah, but when you're kind of, it's a fight until you get to a certain point. And then after that certain point, it becomes just hilarious because now we do a lot of training together. And yeah, so one of the classes we took was up here in Indianapolis. And it was called, it was with Mindset Lab with Shay. And you've heard me talk about Shay. He's been on a radio show. He's a great guy. But one of the classes we took was called Escaping Restraints. And you learn how to, Shay travels internationally. And, you know, one of his passions is to help people and educate people that are traveling internationally. When you're an American citizen, you're an easy target for people to kidnap you. And he teaches people how to make sure that you have the ability to escape something. Like your last resort is to get it thrown into the trunk of a vehicle. So he teaches you how to get out of like duct tape and handcuffs and
zip ties, which is the most common one right now.
Yeah, all those kind of things. And it was a fun class. My husband does not have hair on his forearms now.
From the zip ties.
Or the duct tape.
That was all you. He said here, put some tissue paper around your wrist. She goes, oh, he's tough. He doesn't need it.
Yeah, I forgot that part. Darn it. Yeah. That's it. I wasn't getting back at you for anything that happened. No, I would not do that. Yeah, because I like men with hair on their arms. Sorry. But it was a fun class. Now we have fun doing it. We took the first time ever, probably in the 16 years we've been married, took a trip together without the children, and drove to Utah from Indiana. Okay, I drove, he slept. But we made it to Utah.
It was a great trip.
We made it to Utah. We had a lot of fun. And we both now are certified to give the Utah class. So that way we can travel back to my home state of Ohio legally and carry a firearm. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
It was really enjoyable seeing, you know, Mars when we drove through Utah. Holy smokes.
That was
Utah, Colorado.
Yeah.
It looked like Mars when you drive through there. But, we did butt heads on a couple occasions. I'm trying to save money picking the cheapest hotel because, you know, you figure you're trying to save money here and there. We wound up.
Wasn't the smartest move.
It was the dumbest, worst hotel we've ever stayed at.
We ended up at a hotel with a bunch of
BMX
dirt bikers. And they're probably really nice guys, but they were covered in mud. The hotel was covered in mud.
They were loud. They did not sleep all night long. And they gave us the only room that was available by the door.
Yeah. So it was party all night. But, you know, we survived. We have stories to tell now to our grandchildren, which is always a lot of fun. In the future, we're talking about, we're going to go up to, I think, Minnesota. And we're going to take class on
the ASP baton.
Yeah. So that way we can bring that information. We have a conference coming up on the 22nd here in Indianapolis, where we're going to give the Utah class. We're going to give a class on refuse to be a victim and intro to preparedness. So if you're interested, let me know, because it should be a lot of fun.
And it's in a hotel, so if you need, we can get you reduced rates, I think.
Or not, we'll charge you double.
Yeah, to sleep on my couch.
Yeah.
Triple for that one.
But, you know, the journey to where we're at now hasn't ended. We're more of a team now because, like Eddie said, we found what his passion was. He entered the journey through that door, and we've kind of added to it since then slowly. It's not an overnight trip. It's taken us 16 years to get where we're at right now. But it's nice to finally feel like we're a team. And in most aspects anyways. It's funny because, I'm a news whore like no tomorrow. So I'm always, on news channels or the weather. And I'll let my husband, because I think that's an easy avenue to open the door to, begin a conversation about preparedness, is to talk about what's out there in the news and what's going on. Hey, I see that we're going to be, double negative temperatures over the next week. What are you guys doing in order to make sure everything's okay through that? Those kind of conversations. And I'll give him the news a week and a half to 2 weeks before it even hits mainstream media sometimes. So he thinks that's kind of funny. But it might be an avenue to get people to wake up. I know, conversations, this morning, and Jaden, Mom with Prep, has been on our show a couple times, and she talked about, there's still people that they're just not going to get it. They're not going to be prepared. And yes, that happens. We have relatives like that, so do we prep a little bit extra? We do, because, it is what it is. How are you going to turn your brother away when he's at the door with his kids? Of course, Eddie's brother will have his kids, his ex-wife, his ex-girlfriends, another ex-wife, and probably all of his friends and their ex-wives and their girlfriends and their ex-girlfriends and all that. So, yeah, we anticipate a little bit more than just us and our children.
My brothers know that it is only for them and their immediate families if they decide to show up.
They consider their immediate families their ex-wives, their ex-girlfriends, and their ex-aunts and everyone else. But we love them to death anyways. So let's talk a minute about our children. Because that's a whole nother part of life for a prepper that sometimes doesn't quite go the way that you want it to. You would think that our children would be into preparedness a lot more maybe than they are. But so we have 5 kids altogether.
5, 2 in New York and 3 here.
And the youngest one is probably, in my opinion, the one that's more into preparedness than the rest of them.
Well, yeah, and my Jonathan, my 23-year-old in New York, he's actually a pretty good hiker camper. You put him out in the woods with the kids, and they were all bragging about how he was making them little tomahawks with rocks and sticks and stuff. But
so the youngest one is by far the most into preparedness than all of the rest of them.
Compared to the rest of them, yes.
The daughter, she is all about living her life now.
She's an ostrich. She wants to stick her head in the sand and not be aware of anything around her.
Yes, and the oldest one just moved into his own apartment. Now, all of our kids have get home bags, bug out bags, whatever you want to call them.
Get home bags.
Okay, yeah. They each have a plan. We've sat down with each of them and we've discussed, okay, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, this is what the expectation is. If, say, there's an EMP and they know the signs, they know that all of a sudden if they're out and about and all the cars stop and there's no electricity, they pretty much will say, okay, we know that's an EMP. We know the signs to look for on different catastrophes. So now they also have a plan that they're going to follow, and they know where to go to. We're going to all meet at point X. If something happens and point X was destroyed, then they know to go to point Y or point Z. And it's just a series of events. It gives us as the parents a little bit of peace in the whole mindset part. But believe it or not, people, as much as we talk about preparedness and as much as our kids push back from it, a lot of it still sinks in. So even though you think that they're not listening, they are. Our daughter, like I said, she is off to ready to, she just turned 19. So she is ready to go off and start living her life, making all of her plans and whatnot. But she doesn't like to sit down and talk about the what ifs. She has the personality that, if she's the peacemaker in the family, let's say, she doesn't like to look at all the negatives all the time. She's a happy person. She likes to find all the positives. And it messes with her when she has to think about negative things. So we understand that because we understand her. But when we sit down and we discuss these things with the kids, it does sink in. So please, if you're talking with your kids about preparedness and putting a plan together, don't stop talking to them because they are listening. The nice thing is with our daughter is that a majority of her best friends in life have been boys. 3 of her closest friends are of the male population. And when they come over to visit, they are all into preparedness. So we've taught them over the years how to build a fire without matches, how to shoot.
Let's talk about the prank I did on John that one time. We're teaching John how to use a fire steel to start a fire. The poor boy was there with, I had showed him how to get everything set up and the tinder, and then you start with your little nest and everything, and he was trying to get the fire steel in there. He's striking the fire steel and the sparks are flying off of this thing, and he's doing it for about 5 or 6 minutes, and he's trying to get it. And then I just kind of smiled at him. He looked at me, "Think you can do a better job?" And I said, "Yes." I pulled out a Zippo and lit the fire. And I thought everybody just sat there and laughed at him because he was working on it for 10 minutes and I cheated. But, those are the kind of things we do with the kids to get them into it.
We try and keep it fun. Our kids probably have the most cookouts, the most wiener roasts of any kids in the neighborhood because when they come over, we go to build a fire, we give them fire steels. We say, okay, you guys want to have a wiener roast tonight? Build your own fire. So we try and sneak the preparedness in there. But darn it, if they all know how to
start a fire. What teenager does not like to play with fire?
Yeah. We have the bow in the back. We set up the hay bales and stuff like that. So we go back there and we have little contests on, shooting with the bow. And it's teaching them at the same time that they're having fun. We talked in the last show about geocaching. If you haven't taken your kids out geocaching, do. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and it can be very challenging trying to find some of the better ones. When you go on a website, there's a couple different websites. One is
just geocaching.com.
Geocaching.com, but Garmin's got their own, which is free, where the geocaching you have to pay money for.
But it's basically, it teaches the kids how to hide things, how to find things, how to read longitude, latitude, how to search for things.
How to look for sign when you're in the trail.
Yeah.
It's called Open Caching, opencaching.com.
But people around the world actually play this, and they go and they hide things of different sizes. Some are micro caches, and they're very, very small, smaller than your fingernail, on your pinky finger even. And you have to use longitude, latitude to find these objects. And usually there's a piece of paper in there that you sign that you got it, and then you go back online and you log it in that you found it. Some of them have prizes in them.
It all started about 10 years ago when Uncle Sam finally released the government satellites and let the general public use the government satellites with a GPS, with an electronic GPS, to find locations on the map. And there was a gentleman that started the geocaching website. What he did was he said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. And he hid I think it was an ammo can in the middle of the woods. And he didn't really hide it. He just placed it there. And he put the coordinates online and said, okay, who can find this? And that's basically how the game started.
Yeah. So there's lots of fun ways to get your kids involved. And even if they do not jump on board 100%, give them the basics. They'll at least pick up the basics, have fun doing it. Like I said, if you need to have your kids be the kids in the city that have a wiener roast every night, then do it. And teach the kids while they're at it. Hey, you guys want to have a cookout tonight? Go ahead and build a fire. But here's what you're going to use. This is your challenge. And usually they jump on board and they absolutely love the fun in it.
You have to make it fun. The minute you make it a chore, you lose them. Go collect the firewood. Go get this. Go get that. Go do this. And I learned that the hard way because I'm kind of the tyrant in the family, and everybody will admit that.
Yes, we will. 100%.
So I'm more of a military style. All right, this is the orders. Do this, do this, do this, and this is your list of chores you got to do. Where Lori is more of a conniver. She'll convince them that that's what they want to do. And they'll have fun doing it. With her, where with me, I've learned over time, it's like, honey, convince the kids to do this, because if I try to do it, it's just going to turn them off.
Yeah, and I think we've been quite successful with it. None of our kids have pushed us back away from it when we use that technique.
And it's, we do tend to enjoy it more when I'm not the one barking orders. Yeah,
of course, all the ones listening to us right now might be saying, now I see what's going on.
Yeah.
But they're probably still sound asleep. It's not noon yet.
Yeah, the carrot and the stick, I guess. I'm the stick and Lori's the carrot.
Okay, I have no idea what that means, but okay.
All right, well, the carrot is the part you use to entice a donkey. The stick is the part you use to beat them with.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you now.
And the kids are all donkeys. Well, let's call them jackasses.
Eddie.
All right, nice. All right, so, I'm sorry, rapid trail.
So anything that you can think of for advice for people out there listening on getting a spouse involved in preparedness that might be putting up some resistance besides handcuffs and duct tape and beatings?
I'm sorry, that again, I was reading the board about you. The beatings will continue until morale improves. What was your question again?
Any suggestions that you would, okay, you guys in the chat room, stop distracting him. He's a little OCD sometimes, and anytime there's a shiny squirrel going by, you've lost him. But good morning to you guys in the chat room. Lady Pitbull, we see your caravans is here, JJ. Saul, Ford. Good morning, everyone. But any advice for someone that has a spouse that isn't necessarily into preparedness? How would you bring them on board? Say I'm the female, obviously. Let's say you had a wife that wasn't into being prepared.
Well, you start with what they like. You find what they like, and then.
What if they don't like anything?
There's always something they like. So, say it's video games. You get them prepared by having extra batteries. You start them with extra batteries. batteries, and more batteries.
I totally lost what you're talking about there.
Okay, so the more batteries, so you start them with batteries because they know they have video games or toys that run on batteries. So you get them started on that. So you know we need extra batteries. Okay, now we have the extra batteries. And then you think, okay, well, we got that. So now they know every time you go to the store, you pick up extra batteries.
So you're saying that if they don't have extra batteries, you can convince them that they need to have that because their vibrators might not work.
Exactly. When the batteries run out, if power runs out, you need extra batteries. So now you have batteries. Then you find the next thing. And it's not going to be easy. It is definitely not going to be easy. So you have to figure out, and you're going to have to sit there and rack your brain, what is important to this person? And what are they going to be without that they don't want to be without? So you figure out, okay, well, my wife, I know that my husband loves cigars. So you start, he's not going to argue with you buying him an extra cigar or a box of cigars every week. So you buy him a couple, boxes. And then you start that. And then when he sees, well, I've got enough cigars to last me all winter if I don't get out. Okay, well, that's good. And you start with stupid little piddly stuff like that. And you work your way in. And when they start seeing before you know it, it's going to take you a little bit of time.
So instead of focusing on what you think is preparedness, you need to focus on what they need.
Yeah, instead of focusing on what you think is important. Now, don't get me wrong. There is what we think is preppers is important that we need to focus on. However, to get them on board, you focus on what they think is important,
So if I bought you a box of cigars, you wouldn't have a problem with me storing enough water for a family for a week?
No. Think about it this way. It's kind of like a guy comes into a gun shop, and he wants to buy this gun. He really wants this gun pretty bad. They have the money for it, but it's not a prudent purchase according to the wife. Okay, so the guy makes a deal with the wife, and I'm usually the one to throw this deal out there, is I tell him, all right, buddy, here's what you're going to do. You tell your wife that you want to buy this gun and that she can buy that Coach purse she wants. There's your trade. You have to have some sort of a compromise. It's like marriage. You have to think about what that person feels they want. Last year when we taught that class to the 20 people, the gentleman that had his wife, remember that woman that refused, did not want to take that class one bit. She was the most obstinate student we had in the class. How did he get his wife to take that class? Compromise by agreeing that if she took the class with us, that he would take dancing lessons with her.
Okay, guys, listen up. Might be a way to get your wives involved with firearms. ballroom dancing.
So, that was the way he got her to take the course. And what happened at the end of that course? That obstinate woman that refused, and she was like the most stubborn
She was
student.
the best shooter we had.
She was the best shot in the class, and she was pouting like a little child when she lost, when she came in second at the shooting competition.
And she was setting up play dates with her girlfriends to go out and shoot together. So ladies, stop being bullheaded when it comes to that kind of stuff. You're going to enjoy it if you have the right teacher.
Now, gentlemen, what I tell you to do, and I tell a lot of gentlemen this when they come to me that their wives don't want to shoot, is I tell them, okay, here's what you do. You make a deal with your wife. You come to the shooting range with me. If you win, I'll do the, and we'll have a
wash
competition.
Dishes for a week?
If you win, I will wash dishes for a week. If I win, you throw in some obscene, vulgar, obligatory gesture here, thing that they have to do that you want, that they don't like to do, whatever. And then
let's keep that out of the gutter.
And then lose the competition to your wife. Let her win and do the damn dishes. She will go back, and the following month or so, when you want to go shooting again, you do it again. I figure by the third time, don't lose. Let her win the first 2 times. Yeah, you're going to do the dishes, but you get your wife to go in with you. The third time, you don't lose. You win. Or you might have a hard time winning because by that time she's got enough practice. She's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, all the students that we've had, both men and women, correct me if I'm wrong here, but women outshoot the men every time.
So, yeah, and what I say is that once women get into it, they're pretty good shooters. I have to shoot every week in order to keep up with Lori, who shoots about once a month because her job is so strict with her scheduling, where I'm actually pretty easy to go to a shooting range when I'm done with work or before I go to work. She doesn't have that luxury, so she goes once a month, I go once a week, and I barely keep up with her. I'm usually a better shot. I'm going to take that out. I'm usually the better shot, but not by much.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
But that's only because I practice so much.
Oh, it is so on.
Yeah. We're going to take this out. 22s or 45s? Take your pick.
Oh, let's take the ARs out because you don't stand a chance there.
Oh, that's only.
And I need to try out. I got a
Dragon muzzle brake.
I finally got mine, and I've been itching to try that out anyways. So it's on. But I was going to ask you a question, and I forget what it was now. That squirrel, I guess, caught up to me and got me distracted. But so looking forward, what kind of things do you, in your mind, what do you think is important, and what do you think we should focus on?
In my mind, what's important is the single most important. You know how you're always talking about your best prep is your knowledge. In my mind, the best prep is getting your spouse when you're speaking of spouses, is getting your spouse on board. Finding out what's important to them.
Your spouse is on board, believe it or not.
Well,
I understand preparedness a little bit. Just a little bit.
This is why when I walked in the door yesterday from work and I saw the new All-American canner sitting in the living room floor, I didn't say a word. What was it, a $300 canner? I didn't.
No. It was on sale.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the $300 canner that was on sale for $279.99 is now sitting on the living room floor to go with the other 2 canners that we have. So, yeah, I didn't say a word because I'm on board with it. Normally, if I would have come home and said, oh, what are we going to do with another effing canner? That's 3 canners we have now. You can only use 1 at a time or 2. Well, no, because we got that new grill to go canning outside. So now we have a grill, an outdoor propane grill for canning outside in the spring. Motherfuckers. You're going to be a canning fool, so I'm going to sit there and watch while I smoke my new cigars that you're buying for me.
Okay, yes, dear. Yes, dear. But I think what we're focusing on coming up is one of the most important parts of preparedness. You can have all kinds of tools and toys and all that kind of stuff.
The kind of vibrate?
Well, yeah, maybe. Okay. Totally lost what I was going to say. But yeah, training is important. Have the mindset. But you got to have the training to back it up. We have because protective part of it, we migrate towards firearms. But there are some instances where you might not have a firearm.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to agree with Lady Pitbull Lover. Ammunition, you're out of luck. Your best weapon, your best tool is your brain and your mind, your ability to think fast and think outside of the box. If you cannot do that, you're basically toast. And I really love when she posts because she's always working out and doing martial arts and shooting. And you don't just limit yourself to one thing. The weapons class that we took, improvised weapons class we took last week, it makes you think outside of the box. So if you walk by, that candelabra can be a weapon. That pen can be a weapon. That Caliente Cab Company glass can be a weapon. The Statue of Liberty paperweight can be a weapon. Anything that you use, that's, basically you have to learn to think. Don't let the firearm be the end all be all.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Don't get caught up in that. But I don't know. Chat room says you guys have lost us on audio. Can you hear us now? I'm not seeing anything in the chat room, but I'm going to keep talking anyways. A word of advice to guys, if you're trying to get your female involved in preparedness, word of caution, I should say. Please don't go buy a firearm for her and think it's going to fit. Please take her with you. Let her try it out. I've seen so many times where we've had to go back and repurchase a firearm because the guy, his heart's in the right place, don't get me wrong. But this is kind of like buying shoes. Your wife needs to try it on, make sure it fits, and make sure she can shoot it. So take her with you. Take her with you, definitely, and make sure it's a good fit before you purchase. Because, like I said, when we've taught females in training classes, more often than not, the firearm doesn't always work well.
What I said about Lady Pitbull is I love her training mentality. What she does is she's always either working out or she's doing some sort of martial arts or she's shooting.
You become your own best weapon.
Right. You don't
rely on an outside source.
On just a handgun, a rifle, or a shotgun. You need to learn to think and use everything that you have with you.
Oh, there's our music. That went fast this morning, didn't it? All right, you guys, stay safe out there. Keep your eyes and ears open all times. Watch the stock market. Real concerned about what's going on there. Get some extra cash on hand. And we will see you tonight on the After Dark show as we play Conflicted, this survival prep game. Take care. See you later.